So in part 2 of the video, we got to this point where we've done our first paragraph. We formatted the text so it's not just using the standard fonts. And I mentioned the fact that the lineup wasn't very good and we had problems with hyphenation. I'm going to show you how to turn off the hyphenation first of all. You just need to have your vertical cursor, so just click anywhere in the text. And it's one of these advanced text box tools options. So I'm going to go to Format. And then on the left hand side here, there's a button that says hyphenation. Just click on that. You can see it's automatically hyphenating the story because that's got a tick. So let's take that tick out, click on OK, and you can see now Ghana is no longer chopped off. You have to do this for every text box. There is an option in the advanced settings to turn it off by default, but I'm not going to show you that because then you'll never see the error and you'll never remember to change it. Okay, so we've still got this lineup issue, and the way to make this look nicer is if we go back to our home, we've got this paragraph group here, and you're probably familiar with lining up to the left or lining up to the middle, to the right. There's this fourth one, which is justify, and what that does is it lines it up to the left and the right, and it just stretches the words out of it to make that happen. But you can see if I zoom out, that looks a lot more professional than than that does from a distance. So it's quite a nice thing to do, and potentially it's going to get you an extra point. So it's always worth doing. But it's only worth doing if you've got a reasonable amount of text. So there we go. I've still got a bit of space here. Now you might be thinking, what are you going to do with this space? When I put a picture in, the text is going to wrap around the picture, so we'll have to move because the picture is using space. So this space is going to be used up by the text. Now let's go back to the question. What we've got the title, we've got the paragraph about the history of chocolate, 2 other relevant paragraphs. Now I could paste my other paragraphs in now, but I'm not going to. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because I have to apply a lot of formatting to this because it also wants it formatted in columns. So I need to set all that up, and I've also applied hyphenation or removed hyphenation, and I've also done the justification. It would be nice not to have to do that each time because I might forget to do it on one of the others and it'll look a bit strange and it's not consistent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one paragraph, and I'm going to use this almost like a template. I'm going to do all my formatting on here, and then I'm going to duplicate it and change the text, and I'll go through that in a minute. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to put this into columns. By columns, what they mean is use the column feature of the software. So I'm just making sure I've got my vertical cursor there, and I'm in the text. Now I'm going to go to set up the columns. There's 2 ways of doing this. There's one here, add or remove columns there, just next to this backward P non-printing character sign there. Or I can go into text box tools format, and I've got a columns button there. It does the same thing, it's just easier to see. Now I could just click on that and it'll bring down a little menu here. 1 column, 2 columns, or 3 columns. By the way, if you want to turn off columns, just go back to 1 column. I could select 2 columns, but if I do that, it selects 2 columns, but it makes this gap here very, very narrow. And I think we need a bit more space than that. So instead of just going to 2 columns, I'll put it back to 1. Instead of doing 2 columns, what I do is I go to more columns here, change the number in here to 2. I can even just type 2 in there. And in this spacing, I'm going to set to around 0.5 of a centimetre. So 0.5. It doesn't have to be exact. It can be a little bit less, a little bit more. It depends on your document as well. So 0.5, and you can see I've got a bit more space there. It's a bit more obvious that they're not the same block of text, or that they're in columns. Okay, so we've got some formatting there. We need to put a picture in. Now we've got a history of chocolate. What were my other 2 paragraphs? Let's have a quick look. We've got Tom Page chocolates can be good for you. History of Tom Page chocolates. History of chocolate. So this one talks about beans. So I'm going to use beans we used to make it. Blah, blah. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use a beans image. So I'm going to go back to here. I'll change the view so we can see what we're doing. Now I could just right click, copy and paste. Or if I can see my publisher document behind it, I can just click on that, drag it over the document and let go, and it will paste it in there. It's the same thing. Now these pictures come in huge. I'm going to just resize this. When you're resizing in Publisher, just always use a corner handle and drag towards the opposite corner, just like that. Okay, you will get marked down if you do this. or this, you'll be marked down. The picture mustn't be distorted. And the other rule you've got with your pictures is they must be no bigger than about the size of a credit card when you're at 100%. So to check that, just change the slider down here to 100% or go to View, 100% here. And that on your monitor should be roughly around the size of A4. So compare that to a credit card. I would say if you're working in columns, which we are, your measure should be, your picture should be no bigger than half the width of a column. So here's my column. I don't want it any bigger than about that. And the reason for that is because if I make my picture too big and put it in the text, what will happen is the text won't be able to fit in and you'll get this sort of thing happening. So always go for about half the width of a column. Works quite well. And quite often with this, if you put it up by the tile like that, it works quite well. You may have to fiddle around with this to get it to work perfectly. It's very dependent on the text that you've got. Okay, so that's small enough. If I've got a logo, the logo must be smaller than these pictures. Okay, now you can see here I've got a couple of lines on this side that aren't matched there. The text runs out. What happens is when the text gets down to the bottom here, can't go any further, so it then wraps up to the top. If I want to balance this out, what I need to do is just grab the bottom handle there and just move this up a bit. And as I move it up, you'll see that it just wraps the text around. So that's now pretty balanced. So that's doing most of the things we want it to do now. There's a couple of little tweaks here. I'm going to select my picture. I'm going to put a border on it. So I've got my picture tools. I'm not going to use any of these effects. I'm just going to use picture borders. I'm going to use an outline color. I'm going to use the same dark brown that I've used before. And that makes it stand out and it's obvious that that's the picture. Sometimes you might have a picture but it's got a very small image in it but white background. It looks really odd. So it's quite a good way. Plus you're showing the examiner that you can use borders. So it's a cheap point potentially. The final thing I'm going to do before we can duplicate is the gap between the text here and the picture is really small. I'd quite like that to be something like this, you know, a bit of breathing space between the text and the picture. To do that, right click on your picture and select Format Picture. This will bring up the Format Picture dialog. Now there's 5 different things you can do up, 5 different tabs along the top here. I'm only interested in the middle one of those, the layout. And I'm just interested in the bottom bit down here at the moment, which is a distance from text. At the moment it's set to automatic. I don't want that. I want to click on there and I want to change this left and right here to about 0.5. And again, you might want to make this slightly bigger or smaller depending on your document. Okay, so that's worked. Just clicking on my text box, I can see I've got no red handles, so I know my text is there. We're all inside the blue box. As I move this text box, you'll see the blue line on the right there extends. You see that? That means it's lined up. So I know I'm okay for the blue margins. There we go. Okay. So we've now got a paragraph, and that does all the things it should do. It's got a picture in there, appropriate picture. It's relevant text. We've answered the questions. We've got column formatting. We've used text that isn't the standard text, but is still readable. We haven't used crazy colors or crazy fonts or anything, so that's all good to go. Okay, so now I've got to do that again for the next paragraph. Now I could just go through the whole process again, but there's an easier way of doing that. If we select the object, for instance, the text box here, I'm going to just show you some keyboard shortcuts. So the first one I'm going to use is if you need to move something, if you just pick it up and drag it, it will go wherever and let go wherever you let go. If you want to constrain it, that is lock it into either vertical or horizontal alignment, if you hold down the shift key while you drag it, you can see it will only go to left, right or above, below. It won't go diagonally at all. So it's quite a good way if you want to move something, keep it in line, just hold down shift, let go of the mouse button, and that puts it there. Okay, so that's quite a useful one. Another one we can use is the control key. If I select the object and hold the control key down, as I move my cursor towards the border, you can see a little plus sign. Now if I click and drag, let go of the mouse button, it duplicates whatever I clicked and dragged on. It's like doing a copy and paste, except when you do a copy, Control C, Control V, you end up with this, which can be really confusing because you just paste it straight on top of, just a bit off from where you got the original from. So I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to use Control. What would be useful is if we can use Control and Shift together. If we hold down Control and Shift and then drag, what you'll see is, there you go, it's dragging now. When I let go of the mouse button, it's now done two things. It's duplicated it because I had the Control key down, and it's also kept it in line. So I don't need to worry about lining that up. Okay, so I've got my second paragraph there, all good. What I want to do is I want to replace this text. So what I'm going to go and find my second paragraph. I didn't want history of the Incas. I want a history of Tompe chocolates. And again, I'm selecting it, making sure I don't get the blank line above or below it. Copy that over. Now, I'm going to select all of the text in here and then just right click on the text after I've selected it and select paste. And that will bring my new text in with the same formatting. So you can see it's got the same formatting. I've lost the formatting on my history of Tompe chocolates, the tile, but that's not a problem. I can use a feature of Publisher to fix that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select history of chocolate because it's got the formatting that I want. I'm going to click Format Painter, and what that will allow me to do is the next thing that I highlight will pick up this formatting. So I'm going to click, hold the mouse button, drag to the left, and now you can see that's got the same formatting as that. Let's find a... Oh, he'd been making chocolate cakes. There we go. We've got a clue to what the next picture should be. So let's go for our chocolate cakes. Okay, huge picture. Now I want these to be roughly the same size. I don't want to have massively different size things. So the easiest thing to do, if I put this over here on the left, if I drag this, I'll see a little pink line come up when they're lined up. That's their size. So I know that's the right size now. So I'm going to put that. Actually, that goes quite nicely there. Okay. I need to make that box a little bit bigger. There we go. And what I did there was because the box had these red handles, I knew it was too small. So I just dragged it down a little bit from that middle handle and pretty much there. Now this picture obviously doesn't have the border or the spacing, but I can use the Format Painter again. I can select that first picture that's got all the formatting I want, select Format Painter, click on my second picture. And I'm going to do the same thing again for the third paragraph. Using Control and Shift, drag that down. Find my third paragraph. Highlight the text in there. Right click and paste. I want to get my formatting from here. Format Painter. Highlight the text there. Okay, I'm going to take this full stop off because you shouldn't really have a full stop in a tile. Okay, and then my final image, which is going to be these chocolates. I'm going to drag that in. Now, because the width is critical on this, I'm going to make this a bit smaller than the other one. Again, I'm going to put that there, take the formatting from there, Format Painter, click. Okay, so we've got the basic document there pretty quickly. Next video I'm going to talk about tidying that up a bit.